Was JL and Brack not so wrong after all with WoW Classic? You know what? Let's have a look and talk about this.
It was back in Blizzcon 2013, during a panel for Warlords of Draenor, that the question was popped to J. Allen Brack whether Blizzard would consider a relaunch for World of Warcraft to undo
What they
over
did
a
after all.
decade worth of updates and start us again at square one for the game, to which he of course gave the resounding answer:
No, you think you do, but you don't.
you didn't want to relive the lack of
His
convenience,
famous line.
the time it would take you to level, the questionable class balance. It was all just a memory of a simpler time in the past. Nostalgia.
You think you do, but you don't. Like, that's his famous line, right? And to be honest, like, I was really hyped and enjoying actually WoW Classic. And that was because I felt like retail was way too easy when it comes like leveling characters. And if you wanted like challenging content, you had to go for like mythic raids and like high M plus keys during Shadowlands, right? And yeah, I was actually very hyped and excited, and I had so much fun actually playing WoW Classic. For me, it was a good experience.
Nothing more. Fast forward to where we are now, Classic has existed for, well, some time. Releasing 26th of August 2019, we went back into Azeroth for the first time in so many years. We saw the frantic launch period, the race to a world first level 60, and to clear Molten Core and Onyxia's Lair. We went through the motions all the way to the reopening of the Gates of AQ, the legendary war effort, and the Scarab Lord drama, finally ending on Naxxramas 40-man, a raid tier steeped in mystery due to how few people managed to clear it back in the day. When people advocated for Classic heavily pre-launch, there were certain characteristics that the game really embodied that players wished to bring back and have be part of the game once again. Things that people felt to gradually disappeared from retail over the years, like server community and individual players' reputations, not with any official reputation built into the game, but among their peers. Class and specialization, identity, the scale of the world, how massive everything felt, the grind in order to achieve your objectives, ranging.
I wonder what I actually like the most about WoW Classic. I think for me it's probably actually the grind. Like, it's actually funny. I really love leveling up characters because I love to see a change in power by spending time on a character. Like, I love to see progress in games. I guess that's just me, but I feel like many people probably feel the same way too, right? Like, how do you guys feel? Let me know in the comment section. What do you like the most about WoW Classic? Is it the community that you have to like actually manually interact with people and not use freaking Dungeon Finder and form guilds or join guilds? Or is it also the grind, like for me, where I love really a challenge and having some progression that becomes visible over the next couple of levels and stuff? For me, it's probably the grind, and second, the community, I would say. Because the community, to be honest, is definitely more close, in my opinion, on Classic. But then again, I'm in two really cool guilds on the Horde and the Alliance side on retail, and both are also very social. I sometimes do M+ runs with them and stuff. And we did some raids together and found for Transmog, so I don't know, maybe I'm just lucky on retail, so I see why many people would say, hey, WoW Classic, much better community. And yeah, by the way, guys, if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. There's more MMO and WoW content coming, so be prepared for that. And yeah, let's see what else WillE has to say.
From leveling up your abilities to consumables or your epic mount, 40-man raiding, the goals of ranking, and so on. And the pervading community chant at the time was for Blizzard to go about Classic in a way which fit no changes. If they were doing Classic, do Classic, warts and all, the good and the bad. At the time, spell batching was praised as a win for the community, as was melee leeway. We want ranking just as it was, and for the honor system to release before any battlegrounds were made available. And we got all of that. Oh boy, we sure got all of that. Blizzard's implementation of batching just didn't make sense anymore with modern connection speeds. Ranking was running down Alterac Valley for 12 hours a day, and World PvP led minority factions to exodus their servers. Small things though like this never stopped Classic from becoming a huge hit for Blizzard. Throughout the game, it constantly saw a massive amount of interest and was clearly well received overall by the players, though in a much different way and for a much different audience than the original vanilla was. Having a known...
You know what's interesting to me, and I just also remember that while looking through those in-game footages here, Like, to me, also WoW Classic, I feel like I was actually closer in touch with my surroundings and the environment than on retail. Is it because the grind is so slow? That's what I'm thinking. It's probably like that. And because you don't have immediately a mount, and it takes a long time till you can even fly and stuff. And flying came with TBC and stuff, right? So yeah, because you can't fly around and you have to do everything slowly, I feel like you actually get to have a closer look at your surroundings and the environment. Like, the world exploration, in my opinion, is just so different on WoW Classic than it is on WoW Retail. WoW Retail, you just overfly every zone and you just skip stuff. But in WoW Classic, like, because everything is so slow paced and you can't fly around like that, it takes a long time to get through zones, so you get to completely experience those zones. So that's why I think it's actually a bit better, the world exploration. I just wish the graphics were not so terrible in WoW Classic. Like, retail looks so beautiful in comparison to Classic when it comes to textures.
Release schedule to your game, especially an MMO, will do this, I suppose. You can already predict in advance when you need to come back to the game.
A modern
and
WoW
for
Classic
what
would be
reason.
cool with good
you know
graphics.
What does the most damage or healing or is the best tank? It's all already set in stone and has been perfectly mapped out over decades worth of fan servers and hours of replications of the game. And so as a result, both for Classic and TBC, World of Warcraft has become much more of a patch by patch experience rather than something that's continually growing as it did back from 2004 to 10. Just like retail, in fact, just like many other MMORPGs these days, in fact. Did you always find that you used to have a main game, but these days you're hopping between different titles now?
Oh
trying
yeah,
things out
I'm
and
like
just
that.
generally looking across the MMO genre, or
Yeah,
perhaps wider gaming as a whole,
that's me.
and seeing the bigger
He's
picture.
just describing
Moving into
myself now.
TBC, the game naturally started to answer some issues that players began to reflect on for Classic, that began to pop up again inevitably. The content's too easy. Well, here's heroic dungeons and overall more difficult raiding content. We've nothing to do at endgame, there's no repeatable content. Here's your daily questing hubs, Sketis, Ogrilar, Netherwing, the Isle of Quel'Danas, and daily dungeons. PvP ranking was turned into arena with resilience and matchmaking. Leveling takes too long? Well, Classic leveling gets massively sped up, and TBC 60 to 70 is still much shorter than 1 to 60 was in either expansion. Feel as though you're falling behind on gear, you can't catch up? Well, here are your badge vendors, and content gets heavily nerfed as new tiers are introduced. TBC has quote unquote fixed a lot of concerns, yet if you don't PvP, which the stats we have available tell us the majority of people don't, it somehow feels as though it's even more of a raid log experience than Classic was, at least for me anyways. And it was in Classic, and even more so in TBC, where players have started to say more and more, I can't wait for the next thing, I'm kind of done with what we have at the moment. Especially in TBC, people saying, I can't wait for Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah, but do you know why that is? I think because a lot of people that play Classic also play actually retail from time to time. There are like a lot of people that hop between both of them, right? So they're used from retail that there's always like expansions and stuff. So of course you have this kind of feeling and opinion of people in WoW Classic, because they do hop on retail from time to time.
Not just for the
I also
class
switch
or the
between
new
both
raids or the
versions
PvP,
of the
but
game.
the convenience factors. Many players look down on Wrath of the Lich King as overall the beginning of the end for World of Warcraft. At the time when it
Beginning of
launched
the end.
originally, some old school
I like
vanilla and
that.
TBC players called people starting then Wrath babies. These new players had no idea what the game used to be like. When it was hardcore, when you had to work for your epics, when you had to grind for weeks for your epic mount and put all of your own groups together. Wrath of the Lich King was seen to be so much easier. A looking for dungeon that teleports you straight there with no interactions needed. Heirlooms made leveling a breeze and you never even needed to replace them. So many classes had their weak points plugged through being given a defensive cooldown, an offensive cooldown, mobility, an interrupt. Dual spec began to blur the line of who is known for doing what. A lot changed, that much is sure, and in Cataclysm, even more sweeping changes to World of Warcraft would come in, and then they would eventually
I think
see
Mists
a
of
continual
Pandaria
drop
broke
on a
everything,
patch-by-patch
right?
basis. TBC Classic is still holding out well, I would say. The overall player base is large, as shown recently by the drop of Tier 6. There is far more competition from other MMORPGs than the one.
I don't know how it is on his server, but on my server actually, and like what I've experienced in WoW Classic TBC, that actually there are fewer players now than there were before. I know already about some guilds that had to freaking disband and stuff because so many members kept becoming inactive and they just quit. Like before I was like in a guild that had like cooperations with like other guilds, and if we did some raids or something, we would actually team up with some other people from like friend guilds basically, and some of them actually disbanded and stuff. So I think actually the number is decreasing. Plus if I go now to, for example, Orgrimmar or Stormwind, because I have an Alliance and a Horde character on 2 different servers in WoW Classic TBC, I feel like both cities are more empty than they used to be. So I think there's an actual decrease in players. And a lot of people are only logging in for raids and stuff. Like there are more and more players like that these days. So yeah, I think it's actually on a decrease, not on an increase.
Was both during the time of original vanilla or classic, from the likes of Final Fantasy XIV or Lost Ark mainly, at the moment at least. The thing is though, Blizzard were asked to do things no changes, and they have done, well, some things the same way, for the most part anyway, and allowed events to unfold in a rather non-intrusive manner. We've had issues appear, sometimes they're reacted to, like the amount of Black Lotus that dropped midway through Classic, but often it takes them a very long time to do, and we haven't really come to expect things out of the patches which were not originally included at that point in time. Blizzard nearly surprised nerfed tier 5 content with 1 day's notice, or just recently with the last major content patch, making it so tier 4 tokens can now be turned into the PvP gear. Another good change which they never really mentioned till patch day, and is not true to the original TBC either. But largely speaking, it's been the same releases, the same kind of servers, the same factions, and, well, wouldn't you know, the same things have happened. Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome is indeed the definition of madness. The format in which World of Warcraft rolled out its servers has met what you can only assume is its logical conclusion once again at this point. The majority of players choose the biggest servers if and or when your current server dies. Where else would you go but one of them? The massively multiplayer side of World of Warcraft is really important. You want a big player base, active guild, pug groups, good active auction house, PvP arena groups going, and so much else. It's more important than anything else for a considerable number of players.
How's it for you guys? Have you experienced this yet as well, where you were like in a guild in WoW Classic, and then you heard like news, hey, sorry, we are moving like the freaking server, we are going to another one stuff. Did this happen to you before? Because I actually had not this happen to me, like to my server, but I had people come over to our guild and our server from that one. So they were like, oh, there's no more activity, we can't raid anymore, we can't make groups for PvP anymore, this and that. And what did they do then? They just came to our server because we have more population there. So yeah, that's actually unfortunate. But if you have like 2 versions of one game, like a classic and a retail, a modern version, what do you do with it? You split the community in 2 parts. Like, because you can't play both games at the same time. Yeah, you can play them after another. Like one day you play this, or for half day this, for half day that, right? But you do spread the World of Warcraft community in two parts, basically, with having a classic version of the game. So yeah, this was to be expected. And if a new retail update comes out, maybe some people want to also check this one out, like 9.2 now. And I feel like because of 9.2, also some people left WoW Classic. Because like I mentioned before, there are a lot of people that play both versions of the game. And why shouldn't they be? Because you get with a WoW sub for retail, you also get WoW Classic for not for free, but for the same amount, right? For the sub. So you basically, yeah, it's basically for free because you just pay for retail, basically, right? So, of course they're gonna play both versions. New update comes out, people leave.
Is anybody going to realistically go from a dead server or one where they are a faction minority and willingly choose to put themselves in the same scenario again? No, of course not. That would be completely crazy. This is just the endgame stage of a 2-faction server-based game. It happened in retail and they changed the game because of it. It's now happened in Classic and we have layering and queues to bridge that gap. What about World of Warcraft as an open world PvP game? It's great. Well, for about the first month or 2 of a fresh server anyway.
Yeah,
it works when people are on a relatively even playing field, when there's no clear bias of how many people are in one zone or the next, when players
how
are
many warlocks does
WoLE
have?
Each other, and when flying isn't
Holy
a thing
shit,
as well.
like 3
it was
for
good at the
different
start
ones.
of Classic, and for Season of Mastery I actually wish wished I rolled on a PvP server for at least the first month of the game. Fresh PvP is honestly a good experience. In the long term though, it's not. It's just players causing others different levels of inconvenience and then telling them to quit if they don't like it, which they do. The server by server faction PvP war is near always eventually a landslide. And what did the winning faction get as a reward? No more world PvP because the other faction leaves. And where do the players go? Yep, you already know, a mega server where they are now the faction majority. It's certainly Blizzard that's continued making the servers in a way which allows for this to happen, but players en masse keep making the same decisions. Mega server, faction majority, no interest in world PvP, no interest in balanced servers. Maybe people on the servers with 99% of their faction don't want world PvP, they just want other people to play with, and that's where other people are, so that's where they end up going. Again, it's the conclusion of the...
And you have to also keep in mind that some content also could become repetitive. Like, that's how I feel sometimes when I do M+ runs on retail. Like, if I do too much M+, I get so bored of it, and then I look for something else, and if I can't find people to do that with, or let's say I want to like hardcore PvP with a pre-made cool group, right? And like nobody wants to PvP, for example, or like, oh, I just want to do M+, PvP is not my thing. Then I have an issue, like who should I play with? The same is for like, sometimes there are people that are really into PvP but not into raiding, and the only way you can like cover this all and have like some nice change, on retail it's like easier, but on classic you sometimes have like those special communities that just do like the one thing, right? Like I know a lot of guilds that are so highly focused on raiding, they would not even consider to PvP. So yeah, it depends what you're looking into, but if a game gets too repetitive and you always do the same thing, the same raids and this and that, maybe you get also burnt out, and this can also lead to you stopping the game, right? This is what I was so worried about with Shadowlands, with like the daily quests and grinding for like Anima and the renown grind. And now it's better than before, but it still is a bit annoying. And Torghast, aka Chorghast, right? Like, if stuff is too repetitive, this can lead to a decline in player base.
Two-faction server system that World of Warcraft has. This will happen eventually, every single
That's a nice
time.
song, right?
So is there a bit more truth all in all to Brack's statement than we may care to
this
admit?
song, who
well,
remembers?
You have to expand on it a bit in the
Good
first
old
place.
PvP
When
days.
he answers, he doesn't really have much time to talk about it, and he just covers the convenience factors offered from later expansions.
Oh, this song
but as
too
a
for
view of the whole
PvP.
game, some areas have done much better than others. I think at this point we can say that few players want small servers with name-by-name basis for other players and the smaller communities. Few players care about world PvP or a notion of a faction war within the game. Many players care about being on a big server over absolutely everything else. There seems to be much more
I haven't seen this
interest
for
in the raiding
eternity.
content
Such a high
side of the game
population.
than the PvP as per data made available. The player base is much more driven by goals, achievements and loot. And knowing
Yeah,
that
you need
features
to have
alleviate
goals.
issues such as
Something to
respecking,
strive
for
for.
example, happen for certain in the future is creating present demands for it to happen early. Implementation of certain gameplay elements were kind of scuffed to begin with, such as spell batching, but hey, overall numbers don't lie. Classic was and still is, I think, a huge success for what it is. Unsurprisingly though, many people don't like everything about how the game was, but that's not to say players didn't want it. Not at all. In fact, listen to this.
You think that you want this, and I think maybe that you do.
They just had to do it to him, didn't they? I'm going to be honest, I didn't like
Maybe
every
you
aspect of Classic. I thought the PvP was
He
overall
changed
a
his
letdown
mind,
and
or
that
what?
ranking was just an awful system. And I don't find everything in TBC thrilling either. My Shadowbolt key is getting worn off my keyboard after it being my entire rotation for as long as it's been. I'm looking forwards to having an actual rotation and for more things to think about when I'm pressing my buttons in Wrath. I like the collection tabs and places to store my items so they don't mess up my bags or my bank. And you bet I'm looking...
You know what I think is very funny? And that's something that's actually, when you think about it, super stupid, right? Like, a lot of people, they're moving to WoW Classic from retail because of the reason, hey, I'm not happy with how retail has become. I miss how World of Warcraft used to be like. And they're looking for an escape into an older version of the game. And the only solution for us actually at this point is, instead of re-rolling old content, is that actually, and I hope this happens now with Microsoft, that the problems that are in World of Warcraft that make people want to go to Classic because they don't have this kind of experience in retail, that they fix this actually. Because if you fix retail and take out those issues that make people go to WoW Classic, you actually have a modern WoW Classic in a way, right? With like better graphics and more fluent rotation combat and all that stuff, right? So yeah, why so many people play WoW Classic? Because retail, there are some things that they disagree with that was like added, and that's not so their taste, right? So yeah, if they fix WoW retail more, like, then you don't even need WoW Classic. But WoW Classic is great if you want to live those old memories again and experience this all again and stuff, right? But I'm not sure how repetitive it gets after a while, because like I said, if you do the same raid over and over again, and then like people quit, and then there are like fewer players to actually group up with, then you will do less overall in game, right? Because you struggle to find groups. Because there's always just a portion. If you're like in a raiding guild, there's usually always a portion that likes PvP. But if your raiding guild is big, yeah, you have more likely also a good group for PvP. But if your raiding guild gets smaller because people start leaving the game, then you have even fewer people to also PvP with.
Looking forward
That's the
to the
problem.
new challenges
It's the
that
overall
raiding will have in
population.
store. But that doesn't mean I can't wait for it. I'd much rather have some kind of middle ground between no changes and actually there are a few things that we should probably address. Totally no changes was a little bit much. I liked Classic for what it was, I liked TBC for what it is, and I mean I liked Wrath of the Lich King when it was the current expansion, so I guess I'm going to like that. Would I like to see more
I would like
changes
it too.
overall? Sure. Yeah,
Wrath
I
of
would,
Lich
but
King
other
Classic.
people wouldn't. I think we should leave whatever the current version of the Classic expansion is to be its own thing.
Oh yeah, and by the way, guys, I did a little bit of research about Wrath of the Lich King Classic, and it's probably going to release around 2023, maybe like late 2023, if not early 2024, but we will see. Because yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I wonder like how people will feel about it, actually, about Wrath of the Lich King Classic. Because TBC was pretty well received by players and they all liked it, right? So I wonder how it's gonna be with like Wrath of the Lich King. It's probably going to be a big blast, and I will definitely level up a brand new character there. Maybe we're gonna make a Death Knight, or I will go with a Hunter again or something. Let's see.
Creation of what it once was. If you do want more and you do want changes, I hope that's where the seasonal servers can do that for you. Though Seasonal Mastery went in a little bit on the shallow end for me personally, I'm hoping for a bigger and better Season 2. As for not wanting all of this though, look, Classic
I think
is
TBC
old
was
by
better than
MMOs,
Season of
real old.
Mastery.
16 years now, is it? And somehow I still find it more enjoyable than most games that have come out over the past few years. There are some things in the simplicity of it all, like how smooth and responsive the combat is. If the biggest
a lot of new
single
MMOs
and
were
most
letdowns.
successful update Blizzard have done in recent years is to remove every update they have ever done, I think that certainly tells you something about how many people really did want the original game. That is all from me though. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one.
Thanks for
Very
making this
soon.
video, WillE. Let me like this video. And yeah, guys, like, I don't know. I wonder like how it's going to be Wrath of the Lich King Classic, how people are going to like it. And yeah, maybe Jay and Brack was not so wrong after all, right? Like, you think you want it but you don't. But like, I don't know. Like, how do you guys feel so far about your WoW Classic experience with like Season of Mastery, for example, if you played this version? And how do you feel about WoW TBC Classic? For me, it was a blast at the beginning, the first couple of months, but I have to admit that after a while I saw a decrease in player base, and stuff became just not so much fun anymore. I thought about like maybe I should level more characters or something, right? But then I was like, with who am I going to level with? Because like people start leaving. And now with like 9.2, like the last time I checked in, this was like 2 days ago, I logged in into WoW Classic. And I saw like there are like less people on my friends list active in my guild and stuff than they were like about 3 weeks ago, for example. Like 3 weeks ago I saw more players than now, and I'm pretty sure this is because of 9.2. Because a couple of days ago 9.2 came out, and now a lot of people want to experience this. So yeah, like I said, if people hop on between two versions of the game, you're gonna split the community and make it in one version of the game a bit smaller. So yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like instead of having WoW Classic and WoW Retail, we should find some sort of middle. Like make Retail a bit like Classic, and make Classic a bit like Retail, and have like this kind of perfect WoW version. So yeah, I'm wondering what the future for WoW Classic will be like, how Wrath of the Lich King will change things around, and yeah, let me know in the comment section what you think about this. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. And please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and to give this video a thumbs up. This will help with the YouTube algorithm. And I wish everyone a wonderful day.